Great. So we're going to continue along with Tom Check, who's from First Unitarian Brooklyn in Brooklyn.
So there's several of us here from First Unitarian, and I'd like them all to raise their hands so you know you could talk to any of them about. Everybody from Brooklyn, raise your hand. Any of these folks can talk to you about the things that I'm going to describe to you. And I'm going to touch on two things. Briefly, I'm going to touch on the work our congregation has done with Beloved Conversations. I know Linda Anderson is going to speak at greater length later about Beloved Conversations. But then I'm going to go into more about the way we form linkages with communities of color outside First Unitarian and how that's made a difference to us. On Beloved Conversations, we had our first training of a group 2 years ago. That was very meaningful to them, and then they expanded last year and had 2 other training groups, which included all of the white members of the Board of Trustees. And as you'll see later, that's made a difference in terms of the readiness of board support for a lot of the things that I'm going to talk about. I'd also say that the 2 big learnings that they had from Beloved Conversations are to become aware of microaggressions. We heard a little bit about that this morning. Those things that unconsciously are going on and unconscious to white people, but very, very visible to people of color as offenses. So microaggressions, and secondly, that white people need to do their own learnings about white supremacy, about microaggressions, about how we're operating, and not be reliant upon people of color to be telling them. So white people doing their own homework. And that comes in a little bit too in what I'm going to say. So that as one backdrop, and then I'm going to talk about the things that we've done and where it stands with our outreach to people of color or communities of color outside of First Unitarian. And those are really 3 different programs. The oldest, the most long-standing of which is one with the Muslim community in Brooklyn. The second one, also of long-standing but newer than that, is with the Haitian community, primarily in Queens and Nassau. And then the third, which is the newest one, is working with new immigrants, new arrivals to the United States that are seeking asylum. So I'll talk about each of those and how they've learned from each other, where they stand. So the first one was really right after 9/11. 9/11 in 2001, when the Muslim community was under tremendous pressure and receiving a lot of the blame for 9/11. One of the members of our congregation, who has just this past year passed away, really reached out to leadership of some Muslim community and mosques in the area, and said, "What can we do? What can we as First Unitarian do to help take some of the pressure off of the Muslim community?" What they came up with was a dinner in the month of Ramadan, which that year fell in December, which gave them some time to prepare. You know, in Ramadan, there is fasting during the day, and then at sunset, then there are prayers, and then there's breaking the fast with a meal. And that's often a community thing. And so for one of the days of Ramadan, whatever month of the year Ramadan fell in that year, we at First Unitarian have hosted a Ramadan dinner with our Muslim neighbors. Obviously providing food that's sensitive to Islamic dietary restrictions, no alcohol, no pork. And it very much is a sharing. The organization and the execution of this, however, is very, very much shared. The presentations, the discussions, the prayers, the speeches, what have you, are all alternating between the Muslim leadership and the First Unitarian congregants. So it really is a coming together. And one of the things that's been significant is that year after year this happens. We've now had it for 19 years. It happened this year, just last month. And it's something that's become very important to our congregation. And people from the congregation go, people from the Muslim community go, and we get to get familiar with each other over time. So that kind of repeated pattern over time has made a big difference. And it's something concrete. It's not a big ask for people to come to the Ramadan dinner this year, and it's something that's intriguing. So that, I think, has had staying power, and it's built a connection with an intact community outside of our 4 walls. The second one that built on it was with the Haitian community, which is that in 2010, there was a hurricane that really devastated Haiti, both economically and ecologically. Haiti is fairly steeply wooded, forested, and the hurricanes really wiped away a lot of the topsoil. So besides the immediate economic impact, it also made agriculture very difficult. And our board of directors really wanted to do something about that. So they went to support the Haitian community. And so they reached out again to the group that was sponsoring the Ramadan dinners in the relationship with the Muslim community. And that group was able to find an organization called Fadadse, which is made up of people who have immigrated from the southeastern part of Haiti and live now in the New York area, but go back frequently to help with reconstruction or help with currently with reforestation and general improvement of the place that they came from and the place that they in their heart is their home. Those folks, many of them live in Queens and in Nassau. So it's a similar sort of format. In the spring, we host a dinner, again with foods that are of welcome to the Haitian community. And again, the program is really shared. This one has less speeches and more entertainment. Singing, dancing, music, and again, it alternates the performance. The performers alternate between people from First Unitarian and people from Fadadse, from the Haitian community, so that it becomes a sharing, equal planning, and equal ownership, really. And there's very much a sense of an intact community at First Unitarian connecting with an intact community that's not First Unitarian and coming together as equals. That, again, has become very important to the congregation. And again, it's built long-term relationships. You see the same people year after year. The third thing is newer, and like the last discussions we just had, has to do with immigration. And it was really after the election and after Trump's inauguration, beginning of 2017, we, like many congregations, were wondering, what can we do to help with the ease the situation that immigrants are now going to be under with this new administration. It's going to be even harder for them than it already was. So we went through a congregational discernment process for the better part of a year, really, with the help of UUA resources and other people in the community, and ended up bringing to the congregation a proposal that we worked out with a lot of meetings with what we called cottage groups within the congregation, like little forums. And in the end, the congregation voted overwhelmingly that we wanted to become a sanctuary congregation. We don't have showering facilities, so we can't entertain anybody for very long, but for short periods of time, up to a few days, we could provide an emergency place, a safe place for someone to be who was under immediate threat of detention or deportation. And that was something the congregation really, really embraced in a big way. We found that the reality is that that's not where the need was. And the actual need was with people who have recently arrived or applying for asylum, don't know anybody in the community, need to get a foot on the ground. And so what that's morphed into is our providing support in terms of housing in congregants' homes, in terms of financial support, helping make connections with lawyers, with medical assistance, it's things like that. For folks that are actually are starting their process of applying for asylum. And that's a smaller retail thing. It's a couple, right now we're supporting a woman from Cuba, we're supporting a father and son from Guatemala. Starting next month, we'll be supporting an LGBTQ person from Mexico. But it's very real. And again, it's asking, what can we do to be helpful? Not us being the ones that know the answers, but what can we do to serve? That, again, has drawn in tremendous dozens and dozens of people from the congregation when there's a need. And it's actually become something that sort of defined our self-identity. As we've needed board authorization to expand parts of that program, I think that the work we did with Beloved Conversations has been really helpful. It's helped the board to say, look, this is the kind of thing we want to do. Let's not get too hung up in process and deliberation. let's go ahead and do this. And I think that learning out of Beloved Conversations was very helpful. So that's how those two threads have come together for us. So thank you.